Okay, here's a very important video because it's going to potentially save you from going crazy. We're going to get into some complexity here. We're going to write more complex functions. There's going to be a lot of commas and left and right parens and that kind of stuff. And if you go about this the wrong way, you'll just waste an enormous amount of your time and get frustrated. I'm going to show you how to write a complex formula in a step-by-step way that will get you to your result in the fastest possible time. Now we're in the worksheet here and on the logical operations tab, but what I'm going to do is, and in all these worksheets I give you for the videos, there are completed versions, but they're often hidden. So I'm going to unhide down here the completed version of the logical operations worksheet. So here's the one that we're looking at right now, and here's the formula we're going to wind up with. It's complicated, okay? If you sit down and just try to type that out straight away, you're going to get into a train wreck. You're much better off doing it in a stepwise way, and that's illustrated in the PDF that's out there. So we're going to ask the question, and let's go back and refresh ourselves on what the question is. We want to get a true in these cells here. Whoops, let me go back. If the estimated hours is between 10 and 20, so we're going to look in this cell over here for estimated hours, and the priority is an A or a B. So how do we handle this complexity? Let's go back and look at the PDF. The first thing we're going to do is do the priority A or B, because that's an or and that's simple. So we want to get to this expression, and here's the way I'm going to write it. Is the priority is the priority here C2 an A? That gave me a false. That's very simple, and just to demo, it's easy to check, right? And you want to do this each step that you take. So I've taken a very simple test and check, and I can say, yep, it's giving me a true for the A's. Now I'm going to wrap this in an OR and add the test for B. Is C2 equal to B? And then I'm going to close the OR at this point and propagate that down the column. And I'll get more trues now because it'll be true for either an A or a B. And I can check these as well. So my A should all be true, and my B should all be true, and the C should not be. So now I'm good. And I know what I've got works, and this would be a great time to save the worksheet. Now we'll come over to the logical operations. We've gotten this far. Now we're going to wrap it in an AND. And kind of a funny thing happens here. You can just wrap an AND around this without doing anything else, because the ANDs and OR functions usually take 2 or 3 or more arguments, but they can take 1. So if I just wrap an AND around it, it's not going to change any result, because if it's a true, then that's all that it takes for an AND to return true. There's only one argument. So it just sort of passes the value through. Now, we're down here where we've added the AND. Now let's do the check for greater than 10 hours. That's of estimated hours. So I'm going to come in here on the AND, and now I'm going to add one more clause in the AND. Notice the OR is the first part of the AND. Now the second argument for the AND, I'm going to check for estimated hours greater than 10. Okay. Now that's just one step. I'm going to propagate it and check it, see if it works. One entry turned false, this one. That's because it's an A or a B, but the estimated hours is under 10, so I got a false here. This one's a false because the work group is C. These are false down here because they're C. Look at this one. It is an A, and the estimated hours are not under 10, so it returns a false. Now we want to do the next step in building out the function. We're going to do the check for is it less than 20. So let's come back here, and I'll just do this, comma D2 less than 20. So now there's 3 parts to my AND. The first part is the OR, the checking for priority. Then we check if the hours is greater than 10, and now we're checking if the hours is less than 10. Let's propagate this down the column. And we got everything is false. Why? Because this should have been a 20. Let's propagate that one. Oops, up here, 20. Enter. Propagate. Okay, this one's true. Has to be an A or a B. It is. The estimated hours has to be greater than 10 and less than 20. It is. Here's a true. Here's a true. Down here is a true because the hours are between 10 and 20. And the rest down here with these A's and B's, the hours are not between 10 and 20, so we get falses. So the important takeaway on this is to build out a function, build it out one step at a time on these complicated functions, and just add a piece, make sure what you've got works, and then add the next piece. Make sure it works, then add the next piece. So it's write a little, test a little, write a little, check a little, that kind of thing. If you do it that way, you'll get done much quicker and you'll get a better result.